Podcast number 11. And today we're talking to Skatz from YouTooSpain about his cancer journey in Spain, what it's like to have cancer, the treatment in the social security, and now he's coming out the other end, what he's going to be faced with in 2025. So, cancer in Spain. Before I bring in Skatz to chat about his journey, just give you a bit of background history. So, for a lot of you who watch your channel and also watch YouTooSpain, you'll know that myself and Skatz have been doing live shows for nearly 5 years now. I think I was adding it up, and we've done nearly 60 live shows. So, and a lot of them run on. So, I reckon that's about 100 hours. So, evidently, when you spend that much amount of time with somebody, you end up becoming friends, or you wouldn't spend that much amount of time with them, would you? And it's been a great journey for us both. But this year, he got cancer, and he's going to tell us about it. And we think it's quite important to tell everybody about this journey, because it could happen to somebody else who's living here. So let's bring in Skatz and say hi.
Hello, hello, hello.
How you doing? I better make you big.
Oh yes, make me big. Well, that happened to me during the year. Actually, I got bigger because I just couldn't get enough exercise because of the cancer. But anyway, I'm big on your screen.
You're big on the screen. So, and behind us, I've got the hospital, one of the hospital photos. So I thought that was quite an apt background for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Hospital Civil.
Yes, the Hospital Civil. So before we start chatting about your cancer journey, just explain about the logos for people who might not know who we are and who you are.
Yes. So the YouTooSpain up above is the one we started. We almost kind of started it together. I'd been talking about Spain on my previous YouTube channel with my wife Liz. It was just the Liz and Skatz channel, and eventually I thought, well, I'd better just start one that's just about moving to Spain. And you were on the first live show and agreed to do one every fortnight, and we've been doing that ever since. And that's all about moving to Spain and all about the bureaucracy and everything that you do, and everything to do with that. And when I got cancer, I started talking about that on the YouTooSpain channel, but eventually it was sort of crowding everything out. And it's not good for the AI or the algorithm on YouTube if you're supposed to be talking about moving to Spain and then you start talking about something else and have different titles, and it kind of confuses the algorithm and stuff. So decided to launch this one, Still Alive, and use that for the video diaries. So I've got a video diary that comes out every Friday, and YouTooSpain is now a video, an edited video every Wednesday, and the live show that I do with you every fortnight on a Saturday. And then in between that, I interview other experts in the field on those Saturday morning shows as well. So that's about it.
How's it Still Alive going, the channel? We need to try and push some more subscribers that way. I mean, you've got nearly 10,000 on YouTooSpain, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it's 9,150 something at the moment, and that's going really, really well. I was aiming to have 10,000 by the end of the year, but the cancer got in the way, kind of slowed me down. I couldn't do as many live videos and stuff like that. I mean, we'll talk about that later anyway. But Still Alive only has 81 subscribers, but I think. The problem that I've got with Still Alive is that I'm still pushing it on the YouTooSpain Facebook page and the Facebook group, and people can still access it by other means rather than just getting notifications from Still Alive. So what I should really do is kind of separate it slightly more so that people can only get there, and then they'll have to subscribe to it to continue. But I'm slightly afraid of that because, you know, the viewers might go down to start with when they can't get access. So I've just got to jump in, really dive into the deep end, and that's one of the things to do in the new year, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you could reach a wider audience, especially when you're talking about health battles and putting a fun fun twist on it and keeping positive like you do in yours, which is part of the reason for the podcast, because A is to give some information to people about what you've been through, because I think that is very valuable, and also to highlight what you've been through, because you on the Still Alive you do your video updates, and I know a lot of them have been a huge struggle because I've seen how tired you get, but you also come across so positive because that's how you're trying to keep it. You know, for most of them, people will be like, oh really, you know, he's on his third bout of chemo and he's had how many sessions of radio, you know, so it's sort of, you know,
it's funny, the number of people on the streets of Compton where I live who say, are you sure you're ill? I don't think you've got cancer at all, because you always look so well. And that's because, you know, on a Friday I put on the brave face, and I want to get people amused, even when I'm complaining about things. I've done more and more complaining about things as time has gone on, but actually I try and complain in a fun way and make it ridiculous. I go over the top in describing things, and I think that's fun, and it gets me through it as well. The more you exercise your demons, I think the better it is for you. As well as just being positive all the time, because it's not possible to be just smiley every minute of the day, you know.
Yeah, which is something that we wanted to touch on, because obviously that you've got to keep a positive mental health when you're going through this. So, you know, if you're on Still Alive and you're essentially being yourself, you're a character, you're a performer. Yeah. So even like, I mean, when we've had you've been here at my house in birthday parties, and you know, before being to multiple nationalities, and everybody was just on their feet dancing. That is something that not everybody's blessed with, but that's also, I assume, part of who you are and what keeps you mentally healthy. And so if you can get that out on Still Alive where you're not able to jump about, I suppose that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and actually I've learned to just actually try and be less of that, but it's obviously still inside me, try to be more just the natural me, because I've been watching other people's podcasts, and it seems that the more natural they are, and the less they're trying to be someone else, trying to be a performer, then the better it feels, I think. So I'm becoming more. This is actually one of the first times I've done a podcast where I've not got any notes of things to say. I've not written down. Generally, I read a lot of scripts, and I'm good at making a script sound like I'm improvising it off the top of my head. But I like to get the kind of condensed language. It's almost like being a poet and a novelist, and get to the meat, and make the language sound as good as I absolutely possibly can. So I like to write scripts for those kind of things, and the same with the Wednesday videos on YouTooSpain. But the more I'm doing it, the more I want to get out there and do live and talk just like myself, which I'm doing now. You know, I'm not looking at any notes at all here.
I think you'd kill it, and I think that's a very positive influence we've had on each other, because I never used to script anything.
Yeah.
And you've taught me, Chris, you do have to have a little bit of a script.
Yeah.
And you're there now, scriptless. And I honestly think that looking at other YouTube channels as well, seeing you out and about, also with the following that you have, once you're healthy enough to do so, I think you'll absolutely kill it. You know, just literally, and it might be easier content to record. It's just you being you. You know.
Yeah. And, there's less editing, which is great from my point of view, because it's less sitting around on my arse.
Yeah. Well, talking about your arse.
Yes, the main subject of the year.
Let's go to the main subject of the year, and I have got a script which I won't stick to probably, but cancer. So obviously we went into 2024, you know, plans like we're going into 2025 now. All positive. It's nice to have a wrap up at the end of the year and move forward. And it all started very well, but then you started to get sick. Tell us about before the cancer. What was it which really made you aware that something was wrong?
Well, it was actually back in 2023. I'd been getting blood in my stools, as it's the nice way of saying it, bleeding out my arse. And I'd not really, and I think it was happening before 2023 because I was eating a lot of red foods. I'd eat a lot of things with tomato-based sauces. I was eating a lot of chorizo, which is red, and there's lots of foods with spicy red stuff in them. And I didn't think it was blood to start with. I just thought it was a general reddy brown thing happening. And it wasn't until I began to see, real drops coming out that I said to Liz, I think this might be blood. And she said, well, let's get you down and get it checked out. So I told the doctor at the local health centre, and she said, all right, I'll put you down for a colonoscopy, which is why they put the tube with the camera on it up to see. And that then took 10 months, nearly 11 months of pushing the doctor and saying, where's the appointment? It's only we'd done some research and asked a few other people, and they said, well, it should only be a few months when you get an appointment. But I'd also had blood tests that the doctor had said, because I'd said, are you sure it's not cancer? If it's cancer, I want to know now. Surely this is really urgent. I need to be on the urgent list. And she said, no, I don't think it's cancer, because the blood tests don't show the cancer markers. So they weren't putting it forward as urgent. And she even did further blood tests further down the line. And so it was 10 to 11 months before I had the colonoscopy, and that was in, I think, February or early March when I had that.
So the first thing there is, obviously, I mean, it's very easy to be guided by, what we don't want to do is be critical of the healthcare system, because, there's a lot that they have to do. But at the same time, it's sort of easy not to push. Right, and we had this with Lara, and she won't mind me mentioning this as well, where she wasn't very well, and she knew she wasn't very well, similar to you, and she kept getting palmed off. Now, it wasn't cancer, obviously, but it was a cyst that needed to be operated on, and eventually she ended up going with a very stern and strong Spanish-speaking friend of ours. Well, she's a Spaniard, and Lara speaks perfect Spaniard, but to emergencies about 3 or 4 times, and I just think just keep going back until you get that preferente, until you get that urgent. Which unfortunately might have been your case, mightn't it? Whereas if you might have, not saying you had to lie, but you're not somebody who cries a lot about the pain you're in. If you'd have gone
exactly.
If you'd have gone to emergency maybe 8 times, eventually you get the preferente, and eventually you get pushed forward. But sometimes it just take that insistence, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I'd actually gone to the doctor back in Ireland, which is, I've been here now for well over 3 years. And that doctor said, you've probably got diverticulitis.
Right.
Which is just a food caught in your gut. And he didn't even examine me, so I'd felt something all the way back then. I'd felt there was a problem. Oh yes, this was when I was getting tested.
So when
I was having a scan.
Yeah, I'm going to randomly just put images up as we're talking.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I'll react to them. That's good. That was me putting on a silly face for the photograph. That stuff has got some kind of something that when you drink it and when you do the scan, you can see better what's in your gut. So that was the first scans I had. Was that before or after the colonoscopy? Can't remember. I think must have been after.
I remember it being before, and it showing something that gave you a colonoscopy, but might be wrong.
No, because I'm sure the first appointment was the colonoscopy, unless I suppose they had to do scans before it. It's funny how quickly you forget these things. This is right at the start of the year. I'd have to go back to my scripts, my still alive scripts, and there we go. And that wasn't at Hospital Civil, I don't think. Was that at Vélez Málaga?
I think that was at Vélez. So this was prior to cancer diagnosis, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this
Before the
was,
colonoscopy.
yeah, before the colonoscopy. So anyway, you had the colonoscopy.
Yeah.
Say it
It's a
right,
tough one.
Chris. Yeah, I'm trying to get it. So on this, I need a lesson from Skatz on this.
Yeah. You've only just got this program, haven't you?
I need a
Yeah.
lesson. You told me, you said, "Oh, you get this is really cool," and I got it in Black Friday, so I was like, "Yeah, there we go."
Yeah.
So you had the test, you've had the colonoscopy, and you were there with Liz, and I remember speaking to you afterwards, and it wasn't at the time after you spoke to the doctor, didn't sound like it was going to be good news, did it?
No, they actually said it's not good news. It didn't
Right.
just sound like it wasn't going to be good news. It just they were certain that it wasn't good news, and from the point of view of the person doing the colonoscopy, who was presumably an oncologist, a cancer specialist, they said it looks like cancer. So, which was kind of, in advance of the actual consultation that we had a few weeks later when they said it's definitely cancer. But it was kind of helpful, I think, to me and to Liz to know at that point, because that was the point when we weren't being given the message it is cancer, but it looks very much like it. So we kind of got this idea of getting prepared for it for when they actually announced it fully a few weeks later. So by the time they said to us, it is definitely cancer, we'd already done the crying and the oh shit, what is going to happen and how are we going to survive this year? And will I survive at all? It's how bad is it going to be? Because the look on their faces after in that meeting, when I was still a bit drowsy because I was on some kind of strong painkillers at the time, which you have to be because it's not that easy with a tube up your bum. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was. I can remember because I was at that meeting. I think that was the first medical appointment I sort of went to with you, and it's weird because you sort of seemed prepared for the worst already before we went in. And I have to say, through the whole journey that you've been through and the appointments I've been with you, we've always sort of made it as fun as possible, right? It's always been as laugh as possible. But when you sat outside a room waiting to find out if they're going to confirm you've got cancer, not tell you you've got cancer, but confirm you've got cancer, there's only so much conversation you can have, isn't there? It's
yeah. I think you look more worried. You look more worried than I did. I think.
It's because I hate hospitals as well. I'm not. I don't think anybody likes them, but I get very, very nervous. I'm just like very. And when I'm nervous, I tend to then joke, if that makes any sense. I tend to get quite. I don't know why, but the moment I step in, it takes me out of my comfort zone. I'm like, so I was sat there and I was thinking, we've got to go in now. And then when she said it, right, and this is actually the second time it's happened to me. It happened to me back in the noughties where I had to tell a client that they had cancer that I was translating for, but it wasn't as brutal because that back then the guy had no idea. I was brought in last minute because no one understood what was going on, and the doctor just went, "This is how we're going to deal with your cancer," and he didn't know he had cancer. So
Wow.
I had to I said, "Can you just hold on a minute?" Turns out it was prostate cancer dealt with tablets, injections, and luckily he lives it still continues to live a very long life. So that's fine. But in your case, I think you expected it, as you said, the crying been done, and then when she said it, she went tumor. She didn't use the word cancer, right? And then Liz said to me, "Well, does he have cancer or not?" And I was like, "Well, and I said to her, it's cancer, isn't it?" And she was like, "Well, yes, it's cancer." And I was like, and I didn't want to say the C word, and I don't know why. And I was like, "Oh man, this is horrible," So I was like, "Yes, it's cancer," and it was just one of those things where your brain doesn't work, because you're thinking, whereas you seem very calm and relaxed.
I have this attitude of my mum used to say it when I was ill, when I was young. If ever I was ill, I'd just sit up in bed and I'd take all of the pain and the sickness and everything with just just get on with it. I think I'm like that, and you can tell from the language that I use in the Still Alive, the video diaries. I'm not afraid to talk about the realities of the situation, really, and I'm not particularly afraid of death itself,
Right.
because after you're dead you don't feel anything. I'm not particularly keen on dying, on the actual process of it, because that bit might be painful, but afterwards, from my point of view, I'm a complete atheist. I don't think anything happens afterwards. You go back to what you were for the previous 13 billion years before you were born. And so it's the pain that I don't like, though, and that's what I've gone through in the last year. And it's mainly because of the treatment. It's not the cancer that's given me the pain. That's just been an ache all the time, and that I've been aware of. But it's the treatment that's the tough bit.
Yeah, that's what I think, mentally gearing yourself up for. And the next stage, which we're going to talk about now, is then starts the uncertainty, because then you sat outside and she went, oh yeah, but this consultant will ring you.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you've just been told, confirmed, should we say, that it's cancer. Obviously told because you'd already suspected it. And then you walk out of the hospital and all you're pending on is a phone call. And you're like, well, I want to get this out of my backside now. So this needs to happen, at this point. And at that point, I was like, if this was me, that's the point I'd be having a panic attack.
Yeah.
Because we're chalk and cheese when it comes to that. I'm completely opposite. The night before, when I broke my arm, the night for the operation, which is completely different. It's a break and a fix. Saturday before, I was having a panic attack because I thought, what happens if I don't wake up? What happens if I die? It's never going to happen. They're doing 15 of these a day. But and I was panicking. And even when we left that hospital, I'm thinking, I'm saying, give them this number. You got it, because I'm thinking, well, what if they don't call? And they're always going to call. They're always going to follow the process. But it's just a frustrating process, isn't it? It's like, how can you go home, keep yourself sane, knowing that you've now got to wait a week to then be told what might happen about this cancer which you've just been made aware of?
Yeah, that's not good. And I'd kind of already got used to it in a way. You can't get used to waiting, I don't think, but I'd already had the nearly 11 months of waiting for the colonoscopy. And then it was almost a relief for them to say, right, it's cancer. They're going, right, we can get on with it now. And then things did actually move faster because the appointment came through and we're back in a few weeks. And then once they've said it's cancer, the whole system goes, right, now we've got to do this and we've got to do this, and we pass you on to this person. And that's when the system started to look a lot faster and better. And I started saying, Spanish health system is brilliant.
Let's talk about that then. So we are now at the point where we're going to this lovely hospital here, Calosaya, and you've had the call. And the first, if I remember correctly, the first consultation was here about the radiotherapy, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it was, because that's where most of the oncologists are, I think, in this hospital.
I'm going to ask you now. I wonder if you remember. I remember. What was your number?
It wasn't 952. That's the one I had afterwards, wasn't it?
Was it? I thought that was the one you had there.
No, 952 is the last three digits of. Oh, was it?
No,
maybe it was. I've got it so in my head. It is. It must be 9.
No, it was 118. Wasn't it 118 or something like that for the first one?
Or something
112.
like that.
I can't remember now. I thought it was 952. I remember because it's a Malaga code, but you're right. That was for the chemo.
Yeah, because they normally use, according to them, the last three digits of your medical number, of your health system number, the one with AN on the front of it. And but they used a different one for the radiotherapy.
So we got taken into this place. So anyway, I think I came with you to the first consultation, and we were there. Walked in. It was an afternoon job as well, I think.
Yeah.
So I have to say the parking is absolutely amazing in Calosaya. It's underground parking, and it's relatively cheap for what it is. So we met up. We go downstairs, and as I'm walking in, and you're still calm, Skatz, I'm walking in here thinking, where on earth are they going to send us? There's a security guard, and you say, oh, we're going to the radiotherapy department. And he's like, oh, you need to go to the basement.
Yes.
So there we are, walking down to the basement, underneath the most scariest speaker, because they've got, it's almost like they do it on purpose. There's a speaker in the roof which is constantly humming. It's like just before you go around to the corner where all the sick people are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a bad joke. And, then we went round there, didn't we? And I have to say, through the whole process, you're so calm. And then we've gone to the window and they said, right, we're going to call you in. And then when they called us in, tell us a little bit more about that. We sat down at the table with the doctor or the consultant, and they just brain bubbled us with what was going to happen next, didn't they?
Yeah, and that's what they said was going to happen at the previous appointment. They said you'll meet your oncologist, the specialist, and he'll run through the possible treatment. And there was kind of two different options, I think, that she'd said at the previous hospital in Valles Malaga. They said they were either going to do, I can't remember what the first option was, but the second option was the hardest hitting, and that was radiotherapy with chemotherapy tablets for 25 days. So every day except weekends there. So it goes over the course of 5 weeks. And then a gap, and then chemotherapy through an IV every 3 weeks, but with 14 days of chemo tablets, morning and evening, and then a week off, and then another cycle of that. 5 cycles of that lot of chemotherapy, which goes on for nearly 4 months, I think, something like that, 4 and a bit months. And then the operation afterwards, after a long enough gap. So, and that's different from the way that they do it with a lot of other people. Generally, they try and cut out the tumour first, and then treat the residuals afterwards, and burn off anything else, and chemotherapy tablets. That's the tablets there. That's most of a box full of them, I think. And there was 98 there. Of those tablets, there was 4 in the morning and 3 in the evening, and I had to take them with food as well. So I wasn't used to eating at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, but I had to have something, and then really late at night as well, 9 o'clock at night. So didn't enjoy that, and those were the toughest ones, I think. Well, the IV chemo, I think, was the tough one, but this was different. Actually, it was a different scheme. They told me, they didn't tell me until I'd started and I was on it. They said, this is a new thing that we're doing, because what they used to do was put 3 chemicals into you, 3 really nasty chemicals in through an IV, but no tablets. They'd do that every 3 weeks, and it would affect you really, really, really badly and make you sick, and so that's how they used to do it. But what they did with me, they just put one of the chemicals in the IV drip, and the other 2 chemicals were in those tablets that spread over a fortnight. So I still had a bad 3 or 4 days right at the beginning after the IV, the intravenous, but probably not as bad as other people have had in the past. I've got a brother-in-law who went through a similar chemo to me, but it was like 20 years ago, and he apparently he looked like he was at death's door, especially in those first few days.
So going back to the radiotherapy then, and going through I couldn't find a picture of it going through the Doctor Who door, because you go down there and they've got this huge metal door, haven't you? That where everything's behind it, and then it looks like you're going into it is the TARDIS, because when they open it, it opens up into a hospital. I only went in once the first time, then you went in on your own every time. And you're saying things like, one of the biggest things that I remember at the beginning of it was about your diet, and we didn't really understand why they were saying you had to be on this diet. And basically, it was so you didn't break wind or have any movement because it was so precise,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, they were obviously firing these radio waves um, at a very precise. They'd kind of photograph it first. That was the first circuit of the machine as it goes round you. So it all sort of whirs around you like this, and they have like and that's taking the picture of where it is, and you have to sit and you have to lie really still, and they tell you don't move in Spanish. I didn't know what they said to start with, but they said it so sternly. I was just lying back like this. A lot of the time, if you've got it in your head or in your chest, you get this big plastic thing that locks down onto you so that you can't move, or over your face, which must be terrifying, especially for somebody like you who doesn't like that kind of thing. But fortunately for me, they just told me to lie there, and they did put a strap across me so I didn't twitch about. But yeah, it's all so that you don't move, and I was trying not to breathe for a lot of it, but it takes too long going around. It takes probably a minute and a half for each circuit that they do, and I can't hold my breath for that long. So I was just trying to breathe at the top half of my body. So I was desperately thinking, is it affecting my stomach? Is anything moving down there? So yeah, but I think I must have been good at it, because they never came in and said, sit still. We need you to be more still than that.
And then after each session, I remember, and I think it's important that people know. So if you don't speak Spanish, it's probably good that you've got somebody with you who does. So if the people moving here who come across this, it's a good idea. Albeit that when we went to the appointment after the radiotherapy to see the consultant, which became quite a joke because they just kept saying the same thing, didn't they? It was
yeah.
He was just like, yeah, just crack on, and we'd ask him all sorts of questions, and he'd get the same answer. A lot of them spoke very good English.
Yeah, that was very, very handy. And even though you were there, and we could get through anything, but yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, that, because I've been criticised throughout this year by one or two members of the medical community, who occasionally one steps up and says, "Why can't you speak better Spanish? You should be able to do that by now. You've been here for 3 years." And but most of them have been, a bit more supportive than that. And actually, that was a real help. And I spoke a lot more Spanish to them, whereas the ones who said you should be speaking more Spanish, I was too afraid to do it. So I let them speak English to me, and those were the ones whose English was really good anyway. So yeah, and I just don't respond well to that.
No, I mean, the thing is as well, even if you speak Spanish and it's not a part of your vocabulary, then you're not going to understand anyway. I don't think a lot of medical terms are a part of my vocabulary in English and in Spanish. So I remember when I broke my arm, I'm Googling things in English to try and explain to my family what they've done. So it's if it's not there, it's not there. You're not going to understand. Even a normal everyday Spaniard may not understand some of the terminology that you're talking about.
And when you're under stress, and also there's a thing called, I didn't know about this, but there's a thing called chemo brain, where you get a brain fog and you just lose sense of some words, and even English words start to disappear from your head. And of course, when you're under a stressful situation where you're worried about your overall health, and you're worried specifically about what's going to happen next, you just go blank sometimes. And a lot of the words I learned first on the apps before I came to Spain in the first place, they disappeared completely. So I lost it. I lost a lot of English as well, and that wasn't good.
So here is we're moving on now. Oh, hang on, that wasn't the one I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you this.
Oh, that was the other one.
Where we are. So just to somewhere where we did practice a little bit of Spanish. Was this over the road from Carlos Aya? This is the Onya One, I think it is, which was the bar where we would regularly meet. And I have to say, it's a very good bar. We've eaten there a few times. And although the doctors speak Spanish, if you want to practice your Spanish, you need to go there because they definitely don't speak English in that bar there. So, but that's a great place, really, right next to the car park, right next to the hospital, and
it's right opposite the emergency part as well, which was the building B or something, I think.
Building B, yeah. So that was, and it's quite a relief if you're going with people and stuff, and you are going to Carlos in Malaga. You've got somewhere to leave them. But a couple of times, I think when Lara and Raul and that popped in, we went in and they were sat there at 6 o'clock eating pancakes and drinking coffee. So
yeah, absolutely. And every time I had somebody drop me off, because I was very fortunate to have when Liz was working, which was quite a lot of the time because she was trying to make up for the fact that I didn't have any gigs. We had volunteers who would bring me and wait for me. And if you look down the street just a little bit, I think beyond where those people are standing, there's a little place where you can pull in where there's a sort of a skip next to it. And that's where they'd pull in and drop me off. And then I'd meet them in the restaurant afterwards. So that became, the official meeting point for everybody, really. It was really nice.
So let's move on then to this place how long was it between your
Radiotherapy
and the chemo? It was a bit of a break in summer, wasn't it?
There was. I think I'm tempted to say 3 weeks, but I think it might have been a little bit longer. But they did leave a gap, but not a huge one.
Which reminds me about the crazy clothes that you had to wear because it's all right now because we're saying looking at the sun and we need to cover up, but at that time, I mean, I wear shorts of anything that's over 10 degrees. So, you know, watching you walking around in some crazy long shirt sort of sports gear because you weren't allowed to get in the sun, were you?
Yeah, absolutely. They said to me, I'm more sensitive to sunlight, and I haven't got immunity to any of that kind of thing. So I went on Amazon and bought some. I can't remember what the material is, but it's what sports people wear, and I had to buy the long sleeve tops there. So, I'm completely unused to wearing that kind of stuff. I normally wear really colourful stuff or tie dye stuff and a pair of shorts. So, yeah, and actually, they aren't that hot. The ones that I got, I made sure it was the sort of material that reflected the sun rather than retained it. So yeah, and I'm actually still wearing the trousers now because I actually got the really big ones, and they're really handy at the moment because I have to pull them up like a granddad as far as possible so that they're not sitting on my stoma bag and on my different wounds. But we'll come to those later, I suppose.
Yeah, we will do. Maybe not all the photos because even I get squeamish, but we'll see.
I put them up. I don't mind on the Still Alive channel.
Oh, I'm terrible. I really am. So I've got so much respect for anybody who works in the medical industry because because I'd struggle to put plaster on. Moving on from there then. So we started the chemo. You started the chemo. And then we have this sort of, all I could say is this like funny dance every time you go to the chemo that you have to follow before you can actually get in, which was because of the distance that you live away from a hospital, you get your consultation and the chemo in the same day, where the norm would be if you're quite close to the hospital, you have a blood test, you go to your consultation, they then tell you what chemo you're going to have because they've studied the bloods. And then so in your case it was evening. Come to mine. I'll let you explain what happened.
In the course of the day, the first appointment was the blood test, and that was to tell whether you were okay enough to have the treatment.
Which was like 8:15, wasn't it, in the morning?
Yeah, there were various times. Some of them were like 8:05, and some of them were 8:20, and then they for some reason did a really like 8:45 one, which was worrying because it meant that the appointment that they would give you with the the consultation afterwards was edged on a little later, and then you'd think, well, if that's a little later, then the IV is going to be a bit later, and you could end up being there until 7 or 8 o'clock at night if you're not careful. But anyway, so the blood test, and that was really, really efficient, because the first time I think did we park up and you came in with me, or did you just drop me off?
I think was it 5 times that we went? 5 times, was it 5 sessions?
5, probably more than that, because there was 2 when I didn't have the IV.
Oh, so of course, yeah. So there was probably more than that. I think out of those 5 or 7 or whatever it was, for some reason I managed to take us on a different route 4 times because we were talking.
Yeah.
So I think the first time I panicked a little bit and dropped you off, and then we didn't really know about the car park, which I have to say, I've actually got a photo of it here. And there's a fantastic car park, which is €1.50, that if you get in early enough, you can go into. And I don't think I'd done something. I was driving around trying to find anyway. So I got you there just about on time. I think you ran over, then I came over and met you. And then from that point onwards, we'd sort of got the trick where leave on time, we know where the car park is, and we know we can pull up, drop you off, you can run over the road. And even to the point where a couple of times we pulled up outside, didn't we? Yeah. And I went and turned around and came back.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, it turned, I mean, the first time I went in, you'd gone off to park, and by the time you'd parked and started walking back towards me to sit down with me and wait, I'd been to the reception window, got called in, because you always get a 3-digit number there made up of letters and numbers, really, and it comes up on the board, and you go to either reception 1, 2 or 3, and they take your details and take your medical card, and then they give you a little bag with the different vials that the blood needs to go into. And then they say, right, you just wait for your number on the other screen, and then you go down a corridor when your number comes up there. And that's all of the places where all of the different nurses have got all their kit, and they do the blood test really quickly. And you're back out within minutes, So it only took from me going in. Oh no, the first thing that happens is you go to the machine, scan the barcode on your appointment thing, and that's where your ticket comes out. So anyway, from that point to coming out with a thing on my arm, which they've said hold for a minute, and me walking across the road, I beat you almost to the entrance to the car park when you were coming out.
Every time. And then we go and have some breakfast. So we found the secret cafe, which seemed to be just for doctors only and us.
Yeah, we thought so, just at the side of the hospital. Yeah.
But they served us, so we don't know. I'm sure that it was for public as well, but the doctors went there. And then round the other side of the hospital is the Cafe Bar Onya, which is the same company, I think, as the Carlos Aya.
It is. They've got identical menus.
Do they have identical menus? I didn't spot that.
Yeah, I didn't notice until the last time we went. Last time I went with Liz.
So that, excuse me. And that's a nice place to chill out, because we didn't have the appointment for the consultant until about an hour after that, did we?
Yeah, and the first time we went, more or less at the time. We waited until after 10 o'clock to go there, and of course by that time it's crowded, and we didn't learn until afterwards that the consultants they have a meeting at something like 9:30 and decide on who's got who and what they're going to do and in what order, and then they all march off, and the appointments don't start until 10 o'clock. But we realised that if we got to the window at like 9:20 or something like that, then it's a lot easier, and you're kind of higher up the queue.
And there was a couple of times there. So you've gone through that. There was one time where you were left hanging for a long time. I think I had to leave about 1 o'clock to go to work, and you
awful.
were there till 3 o'clock. Just left there abandoned.
On a hard metal chair as well. Oh,
they weren't very comfortable. And that corridor, which again I haven't got photos of it, which is just windows.
Yeah.
And sun.
Looks like a Victorian mental hospital. It's just not good. It's because it's the oldest part of the hospital, I think.
The waiting area, I could never get over that waiting area. So everybody who's not supposed to be in the sun, who's got cancer, sit in this corridor, which is just windows and sun. So everybody sat there coming up.
Yeah.
Or they'd give you a call, to be fair. They said they'd call you, but I think for some reason you seem to have more of a chance if you sat there knocking on the door. But one of your delays was they actually had to wait for the chemo drugs to be brought from the other hospital, which is
where the blood tests are.
The blood tests are, which is the Infantil Hospital, but actually has a lab below it, over to the civil hospital. For it to be administered.
Well, they have to do that with everybody, but that's why there's the gap between the consultation and your appointment time. But they usually give you your appointment time, and they did it every time at 1 o'clock. I think they said come back at 1 o'clock, and there was one time when it was when we went together. We said we'll just have we were going to go to the cafe, and you said you've got some relatives coming and you want to buy some Malaga football shirts.
That's right, yeah.
So we went to the stadium, and it was I don't know if it was while you were in there, the phone call came through, and I said, yeah, it's the hospital, and they said come back now, and I got in quite early that day, which was good.
So, when you were going through this point, just could you? I mean, because you was feeling sick, because you knew first 2 times, you go through your chemo and you know what's going to happen, and then you go happen, and then when you've got like another 3 more sessions to go, but you've only done 2. How do you face that? How do you try and go, I've got to do this again? I mean, how do you mentally prepare yourself for being as sick as you got after the chemo?
No, that is tricky. It's because the first part, the radiotherapy, you don't really feel it. With all of those sessions, it's just a matter of going in day after day after day and doing it, and that's just getting into the mindset of doing it. But with the chemo, it's sitting in a chair for 2.5 to 3 hours altogether with this strip in your arm, and you can't do very much apart from snooze and read a book, and it's quite noisy in there. But as you say, talking about the when you come out, I didn't feel that sick while I was having the IV, whereas some people did. There were people throwing up occasionally while they were having it. But I knew that it was almost a whole day after I did the IV. It was always on a Thursday that we went down there, and it was always on the Friday afternoon when I started to feel really tired and really low, and start to feel a bit sick, and I'd have to take more of the tablets to settle my stomach. I don't know. You have to get into a mindset of knowing that it's only going to be a few days, knowing that Saturday was going to be the worst, and that all you could do is just sit on the settee, wrapped up in a blanket, and hopefully not have to say anything to anybody. And there was just Liz there, looking after me. Or, she'd be off working somewhere, and I'd just be...
I was going to say, it's not good because Liz is having to work, or you're on a Saturday just doing, she's there working, and obviously she's in the public eye, having to give massages, be positive, and do whatever.
Yeah, that was it. It was almost tougher for her, because all I had to do was face the mental battle of getting through those few days. And I think it's I've always said to people that I'm more of a marathon runner than a sprinter. I'm good at facing the longer battle, and if I know that there's going to be an end to it, and I know the time scale, then I can just face it. It's like I said about what my mother said about being ill. I used to know how long, how long a sickness is going to last generally, once you've had one, and even if it lasts a little bit longer, you can cope with it. Well, I certainly can. But as it goes along, that is the problem with the IV chemo, is it's cumulative, the effect of it, and it does get worse. But I knew that from what people had told me. They said, yeah, the first time's not as bad. Second time you'll feel a little bit worse. Third time a little bit worse. Yeah, and by the third time I was, yeah, I really wasn't looking forward to it. But somebody had said right from the very beginning, the battle is up here. It's not it's not what's going on with your treatment. It's in your head, and you really have to make sure that you watch positive television. If you're going to watch a film, don't watch The Godfather or something like that. Watch something happy and cheerful. Watch Disney films or something like that, and because it just has a kind of a bubble of cotton wool around you that makes you feel just generally happier. So yeah,
which was very, it was good because you stayed at mine a few nights before the treatment and stuff, and there's no, because it's a kind of a weekday, you sort of just got involved in our everyday life, so it's like,
yeah.
to turn up, and I can always, and we didn't. Raoul, my son, who's a big YouTube fan, he's coming on 11, so he's he loves YouTube and this that, and the other, and he respects and looks up to you for a YouTube person who's got star, and you're good friends. You always,
yeah. It was funny to become a kind of a hero.
Yeah,
for
he's
a little
like
bit.
kind of sat there with him, and I was just getting on with cooking and whatever we're doing, or answering phone or whatever I need to be doing. And you two, so there's no sort of like, but I can remember him sort of asking, he was like, we're not going to lie to him, and he was like, what's going on? I said, well, Skatz has got cancer and he's going through treatment. And I can remember that after the first treatment, he came back and he said, he said, oh, is Skatz coming again then? I said, yeah. He said, well, is he not cured then? I said, oh no. I said, this is, I said, but you maybe need to just talk to Skatz about it. He's got a very positive mental attitude towards it all. I'm not the one that's going through it. I'm the one that just sits and eats my breakfast and babbles a bit of Spanish. So,
yeah. And that was really funny when he said to me that, because he said to me, "So is it? So is it done now? Is it?"
He said, I remember he sat there and said to you, "Is your cancer better yet, then, Skatz?"
Yeah.
And having to sort of answer that, and I thought, there's no.
And my first response was to laugh, but actually, I mean, that's, to him that was me laughing at him. So I thought, and I stopped and I thought, well, no, that's, it's a very sensible question, So I said, okay, this is what's happening, and I didn't explain fully the first time, and then the second time I came, I talked a bit more about it, and actually described what was happening. It's part of my body that's turned against me. That's what cancer is. It's the cells fighting each other, and you have to attack them with radiation and chemicals which are quite poisonous, and it's also poisonous to the rest of your body. So that's why I look very ill. So
yeah, and he was very, that was good. I mean, I think it's strange looking at it from a kid's point of view, because even I didn't understand the exact mechanism of what you're going to be going through, but moving on now to operation, which we're going to talk about, it sort of gave me an understanding. When I said they're operating on Skatz, I said, oh yeah, because they're going to get rid of that nasty cancer, aren't they? Yep, so they're going to get rid of it. And I think it's it was good the way that, and the evenings before your treatment.
I like being realistic. I like being realistic with even with children. I think hiding things from them, and just to make them feel okay about it, I think you've got to be realistic about it and give them an expectation of what might happen. And we didn't talk about death really, which was because I wanted to keep a positive attitude to it.
I don't think I don't at any point, death was never mentioned. When you talk about cancer and the possible outcomes or whatever, it's and people get certain diagnoses, but it was always, you're going to be cured. But that brings us on to the very last treatment, which you get all hyped up for this. So we're here, we're having a bit of fun, we're going for it, we're coming to the last one. You go get your bloods, and it's a whole rigmarole of getting a lift down here first, and then and then you go and get your bloods, you go see the doctor, and the doctor says your markers aren't right.
Yeah. So this was after the third one, so it was the fourth one, I think, when that happened, and it happened 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
which was not fun. And I thought when it came to the fifth one as well, after they said yes, you can do the fourth one now, I thought, well, this is going to happen on the fifth time as well for the fifth cycle.
Yeah.
But it didn't, because I actually changed my diet and started taking some tablets to put more vitamins in my body and encourage my white blood cells, my immunity, and it worked. But those two times when they said no, fortunately we'd got into the system of meeting you at the cafe after the blood test, because and you'd already ordered my food, and then going up really early to the reception when there's nobody there, and getting in and being almost the first one to see the doctor at 10 o'clock. In fact, we even went in at about 10:15 one time.
Well, I wish, to be fair on them, I think the two times they knocked you back, I don't think I was there for the second time, but the first time, I can't remember now, they called you in early because they knew you were waiting. So they came and said, look, we called you in early. I'm really sorry. Your bloods aren't, you're going to have to go away for a week and give you the whole thing for the following week. And then there was a bank holiday in between.
Yeah.
And I can remember they called you in early for one of them. It was a 6-day gap after the second rejection.
Yeah, it came in on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday.
And I was looking at it going, oh, really, 6 days? And I said to the doctor, do you know what's involved in actually getting here, like a lift? And it turns out that, because I was away, if you remember, and you had to go down, didn't you, for it?
Yeah.
And I think you had to stay overnight, because I remember the bank holiday and you went with Liz. And it turns out that it worked 6 days later. So the 6 days helped the bloods, and that was your last one, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. The last one was the fifth. I think that was the fourth one, maybe. Or was it?
Was that the fourth?
Oh, I can't remember anymore. It's another one that's gone out of my head.
I remember because I wasn't there for the last radio and I wasn't there for the last chemo to see you ring the bell. That's all.
Must have been the fifth then, yeah.
So that was. So you've done all that. So now it's then.
Yeah. Then I expected, because they'd said originally at the very first thing, then there'll be a gap of about 3 weeks, and then you'll get your, and then they'll tell you when your operation is. But it was a lot longer than that, because they said when we went for the consult, they said, oh, it's going to be 8 till 12 weeks from your very last chemo. You've got to wait before you can have the operation. And I was thinking, oh, that means it's going to be in like December, when I'd expected it to be late October or something like that.
Which did you have then? So we've done all the chemo, done all the radiotherapy, and then you had another scan before the operation, right?
Yes.
Right. And that they didn't really give. What happened? Did they tell you it'd been reduced? Did they tell you it was?
Yes, I don't know which. It was at the consult where they said yes, and I had to ask specifically, so what's it gone down to? Is it good? And he said, yeah, it's gone down from the 10 centimetres to 2 or 3 centimetres.
Brilliant.
And I smiled and said, that's really good, isn't it? He said, yes, that's really, really good. And so that was, oh, there it is. There's the ward. So that made me feel positive about it. And that meant that the margins must be good. The margins is the gaps either side of the tumour, because you need to leave a bit of a gap in case there are individual tiny little cancer cells either side of the tumour still in there that haven't been caught. So you've got to leave a gap. And the difficulty with mine is that the tumour was in the rectum, which is the very last bit before the exit, and it's bigger than a tube, and it's got a lot more muscles in. It's got the squeezy muscles in that get the poo out in the end. So it's a more difficult area to cut out and operate in. And also there was a tiny bit that went into the part above that, into the colon.
Yeah, which I excuse me, then this was when you went to, was back to Carlos Ayer again.
Yeah. And
we had that morning, the pre-op morning, where it was run to 14 different appointments, which I have to say all went very well.
Well, that was fun, yeah. They were all spread out over the whole morning, weren't they? But we ended up just going from one to the next really quickly.
a bit of a mission impossible, wasn't it? You go in there and it was like, right, go to that. Yeah, what are you going to do? Electrocardiogram to make sure the heart's going to work for the operation. Then it's the anaesthetist, and then it's this, and then it's the blood, and then, so you go around all the hospital in A section, which was quite quick, and that was when you had the date for the operation, which was the following week.
Yeah.
And that at that point, and we'll come on to what happened with that day because that was a bit weird.
Yeah.
At that point was when you went to see the stoma nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't really taken the stoma bag into consideration. It was just, yeah, you might not. Had you at that point, were you expecting to have one?
Well, Liz had said, because her mum had been through the same kind of thing twice, and she had a temporary stoma the first time and then a permanent one the second time. So she was kind of expecting, and she was giving me the expectation that there was going to be one, but I was in denial. I was saying it's all right. They'd said I might not have to have one. So I was expecting not to have one, and that was the positive mental attitude I had, which didn't work, but at least it got me through that before the time when they actually did it. But it was quite funny with the stoma nurse, because she had her assistant in, and she was drawing all over with a permanent marker. She was drawing all over my stomach, and putting these two big dots on there, which were the two possible sites of where the stoma bag was going to be. And one was for one's called an ileostomy, which is the one that I've got, and that's on the right hand side, down on this hand side of me, and that attaches to the small intestine and leaves out the last part of the intestine, the large intestine, which runs down to the rectum. So they're basically bypassing that, and all of the poo comes into the bag through that hole. There we go. I won't be.
What made me laugh was the.
Try not to be too graphic. You can put the picture up now if you want. If you want to be graphic with the.
Oh God, what we got here?
You can see the bag.
Some of the stuff he sent me, I might do that afterwards. Oh dear, it was terrible. Even I can't look at it. I'm like, what made me laugh was the when she was doing the drawing on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sat there listening, going, "What on earth is she doing now?" It's this line going across here, and she's explaining to the trainee nurse that you need to draw a triangle to make sure it adds up, and then permanent marker came out. I'm thinking, I'm sure that's not good for the skin. And then afterwards she went, if you shower, if that starts, you've got to go down to the Chinese shop and buy a permanent marker and make sure that's permanent. Make sure you don't lose any of those markings, because that's what you need to go into the operation with that on you.
Yeah.
And then we sat down at the table and gone through that. And at this point, then I'm realizing, going, it's going to have to have a stoma bag. I didn't even take it into account, like stoma nurse or just walking around going, and then she's got the bag out, and she's shown us medals of people who have won awards and
Olympic athletes and things like that. Yeah. So stomas are fine. They're fine. They won't leak. They're absolutely perfect, and you can wear them for anything.
Yeah. She was like, yeah, you can go swimming, you can go hiking, you can, do cartwheels. And then she sat down, and you're all prepared to go to the operation on Wednesday, because they told us it was Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then, because Liz obviously had to take time off of work when you have an operation. When you have an operation in Spain, this important point to explain is they do expect, especially the first days after an operation, for you to be accompanied by a member of family to help, so acompañante. But unfortunately, in the social security, that person has nowhere to sleep. So quite often they'll spend a couple of nights in a chair. So we'd spoken about this, and Liz had already booked like the whole week off of work. Obviously, you're not working. And then they sat down and went, so you got it. And I think this was the Friday or something. They said, we'll see you Tuesday at 12 o'clock, which brought the whole thing forward 24 hours.
It was actually the Monday, the tests.
Oh, it was the Monday, the test?
So they said, come in tomorrow. What? Oh no, and Liz had some work lined up for that day, so I had to phone her up and go, going to have to change that. And that was just to come in the day before, so that I was ready for an early operation the following morning, which is fair enough, because they needed to prepare me and put the drip in and all that stuff.
And it was a longer operation than it should have been, wasn't it?
Well, I think so. They said it was going to be quite short, but I don't know what their idea of short is. But yeah, I think I was in there for 2.5, 3 hours or something, and then there was the recovery, and the recovery was longer than I'd expected. I had no idea, because I'd been through. The only time I'd had general anaesthetic, I think, before this was at the dentist, and I came around fairly quickly at the end of that. I'd been under for an hour and a half, came around fairly quickly, and I was just woozy for a while, but I was off back in the car and on the way home not long after that. But no, this one I was in that room coming round for quite a while. I remember, I must have snoozed off again a few times, but yeah, I remember opening my eyes a few times, but I can't remember much about it. And then they took me, and it's very close to the ward. That they took me back to the room, and this was the single room that I was in. Well, there you go. There's the main scar where they cut through. Now, the whole operation was done by a robot called Da Vinci, and I was expecting it to be all small holes. You can see a small hole where oh no, that's my belly button up there. But the bag, the sort of yellowish thing above the gloved hand there, that's the stoma bag.
I just, when I came in to see you afterwards, I think you were out for a day, so at that time I wasn't driving, so I couldn't get over. And then when I got over first time after the operation, I know you were sending me photos and stuff. I mean, I couldn't believe, first of all, the size of the room. The room was tiny. Well, I came with Lara, didn't I? Lara drove me in. We both came.
Yeah, that was in the ward in the other hospital. The first room, where the first room was in. Where did I get the operation done? Which of the hospitals was
Civil.
Oh, no. Yeah, the one.
Civil. Yeah.
Yeah, where the picture is behind you. So, yeah, so I was in that one, and the rooms they have there are individual ones. Right. So, and that was lovely, and that was the same size, that individual room, as the double room was that I was in the other place. So lots more room, but of course I couldn't do anything. There was a toilet in there, and there was room actually for Liz to put some yoga mats on the floor and lie down on the floor and go to sleep, which is what she did on the second night. The first night she tried to go sleep on the chair. She put it all the way back, but there's a great big gap in between the two parts of the chairs, and she ended up with a really bad back for a whole week after that. Yeah. So it wasn't comfortable for her, and there was all the problems with giving me the wrong medication and not being very well, and I think the bag was leaking there as well throughout the night, and they were kept trying to change it and make it work, but it was because of underneath where the circle is, where they cut the hole for the stoma to come through. There was one of the holes where one of the robot arms had gone in, which was only like this long with 4 little staples. And yeah, that's not really an accurate guide. Those things, that's what you've got to put around the stoma. But you've got to stretch it out. And it takes me 10 or 15 minutes to make that to the size of the stoma bag. I can't understand why they just don't make them the size of the stoma. And that's just something to put down there, to put what we've called the base, which sticks onto your skin, and that has a plastic thing at the top which the stoma bag clicks around and onto, so you can actually unclick the stoma bag and change it really easy and click it back onto this thing. But you have to change the base oh, there you go. That's the bag, and you can see all the wounds. But so behind that is the base that sticks onto your skin, and that's the thing that it was leaking. Because the red part where the circle is there, that's actually my insides.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. So I forgot about actually you got them blue lighted across to the recovery, which was Carlataya, wasn't it? After that.
Oh yeah, and that was a nightmare. One of the paramedics was just like this guy who wanted just to get me there, get me in the ambulance, and they got this thing underneath. They rolled me onto one side and put this thing underneath me, rolled me onto the other, and then hooked me onto this platform thing, which then took me onto a trolley and was bounced all the way down through the hospital and into the lift, and then down through and down that little sort of runway that's around the back of that building there that you've got in the background, and down and round and into the round to the front, and then into the ambulance, which was parked exactly where you can see in front of that thing. And so the roads, Malaga roads, are really, really bumpy. Either that or ambulances have got really, really tight suspension. I don't know, but either way, I was being bumped around so much. And this was 24, maybe 28 hours after the operation.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, and then at the end of it, you end up in a room which is a lot noisier, and there's visitors. There's another bed in there, which has got a lot more visitors than they should have had, because you're only supposed to be allowed one.
Yeah.
And and I'm right next to a window with no blind. And we're high up on the 6th floor, so I'd actually quite a good view of the north of Malaga. But and I was still feeling it, but that was at the time when they were only giving me paracetamol at this point. And it wasn't until, I actually said to them, why aren't you giving me anything other than paracetamol? I'd have expected it to be on opiates for the first few days. And they said, well, if you need more painkillers, you've just got to ask. And that's one thing that I'm not used to, is to actually being proactive in doing things like that. So I got a lot more proactive as time went on, a lot more proactive in pressing the emergency thing and going, need painkillers now, until because they'd given me the wrong painkiller at Hospital Civil after the operation, and it made me throw up. So they were a bit dubious about giving me any other painkillers. They said, oh, you're allergic to loads of things. I'm going, well, is there anything that I can take? And I said, well, is there, some opiates? And they were all dubious about that. And it wasn't until the actual surgeon came round. He said, no, really what we want to do is to get your system working again. And opiates make you constipated. We don't want you constipated. We want this system working before we can release you from the hospital. So eventually they gave me tramadol, and the nurse said, oh, it's tramadol, it's not an opiate. And Liz said, are you sure about that? She said, no, it's all right. That's not an opiate. And we both looked it up on our phones, and it's an opiate.
Don't talk to me about tramadol, I can tell you.
No, you don't like that one at all.
Oh, I had a bad experience on that, I can tell you, not so long ago, where they gave it to me for my arm, and I had to phone up to the doctor, went, oh, shall I give you tramadol instead of paracetamol? Because that was only about 3 weeks ago. And I said, well, I don't really know. And then I had it one night, and the next day, that was it. That's, the one and only time. Forget it. I was just throwing up, literally throwing up. Supposed to be at work, on my way to work, and stop in the car. And I don't know how you did that in a hospital bed.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel that nauseous on it. And also I was having anti-nausea stuff every day. I was being injected with some anti-nausea stuff and blood thinners and all kinds of stuff. So I was probably being protected from that feeling. But the opiates don't usually affect me that bad. I've had codeine mixed with paracetamol, and that's one that makes me feel a bit nauseous. But no, I mean, you obviously get that side effect more.
It's terrible. But anyway, so you're in there. It was pretty, from what I can remember, a very horrific and stressful situation, just trying to get you out. Liz was there. I mean, one of the most important things to take away from it is that if you can organise shifts in people trying to help you, because Liz was basically on her own. There, anybody who's watching who's going to have anybody going into hospital, it might not be possible because you might geographically there's no one next to you, your family are miles away. But this thing called an acompañante, or someone who's always there with the patient, because the patient is quite frankly off their head most of the time. So you don't really know what you're getting. You don't really know what you're being told. I'll take that tablet. Okay, I'll have that. And it would be handy to have someone there at those key moments. Also, maybe someone who spoke Spanish. I remember when the lady came in to me, she realised I spoke Spanish, and then she started. I mean, I walked in and you've got a bag with blood, you've got a bag with poo, you've got a bag, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
Get me out of it. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be nice, Skatz. I'm staying for a bit, but I don't want to see any more of this. You know, this is like, and then the lady starts coming in. She says to me, right, I'm glad you're here because what I want to explain to you, see this here. Now I want you to empty this. I said, I'm not going to the toilet.
No.
Forget it. You know, because you'll be putting me in the bed next door. So, but you know, and it was just like that kind of that frankness of them. They just need to get this job done. And then she's going, this bag of bile, right, or whatever it was that was coming out of your belly. I don't know. I didn't really want to see it. And I'm going, okay. She went, that will be removed after 2 days. I'm looking at it. I'm going, what's going on? So you know, having a couple of people prepared maybe to do shifts if you are going to go into hospital to be alongside you is always a good idea. I think, you know.
Just to help you untangle the tubes, because the first thing that was there was a catheter, which comes out of your willy.
Oh, yeah, that's hooked up
because you can't get up to start with. You can't use a bedpan. You can't do anything. So that's that. You're basically weeing into a bag. But if that gets tangled up, it's the last thing you want to get tangled up because it tugs. And there's just basically a bag of wee on the ground. So there's a long tube. But you've got other tubes as well. You've got, as you said, there's one coming out of the belly, which is just draining off fluids that are left after the operation.
Horrible.
It's basically blood from the operation. But anyway, and there's one in your arm, a cannula in your arm as well. So if you try and lean over it, and then there's the stoma bag as well, which has also got another bag coming off it, so that they don't have to keep on emptying the stoma bag of poo. There's a bag attached to the bottom of it, which is on the ground. So that makes it easier for them, so that they can just empty that bag separately. And that's something that they put on my arm eventually. I think I had the cannula in my hand. That's the cannula where they put a needle in, where the plaster bit is. But that thing they put there because the tape kept coming off my arm where the cannula was, where the drip's going at the top there. And so it was bending and the drip wasn't working properly. So eventually they put that over me, and then that was stuck there for the last period of the thing. And you can't see it on there, but there's actually a kink in the tube, and it wasn't working properly anyway. So they were telling me to bend my arm at this very delicate angle and hold it down so that the drip would work properly. And they'd go away and it would stop working, and I'd be just trying to move my arm. There's actually looking quite cheerful there. I don't seem to have many things poking out of me. I think I've got that. I've got my gown covering me up.
You had all sorts when I took that photo, poking out of you, and I was trying to look away. It was just, and then it was a few days of basically you with Liz there trying to get the stuff taken out and get.
No, gradually, it was kind of one at a time. The catheter came out first, which was literally a relief. But that meant I had to get up and immediately start standing up, and they put me in the chair, and I didn't like sitting in the chair because it was just a bit harder than lying in the bed, and I was sitting up, which was squashing all of the stuff that was down in my belly. But I had to go with one of those drip stands on wheels where the drip hangs off it. So I had to go into this tiny bathroom, and the wheels are on things that stick out at the side, so you have to kind of maneuver it to get in through the door and stick that by the toilet. And you couldn't sit on that toilet without half of you sticking to the wall at the side, and there was towels hanging down in front of you, so you had to maneuver yourself to. Fortunately, I didn't have to sit down because I had the poo bag attached. So but eventually I had to keep emptying that into like a vase, and I had to pee into this kind of vase shaped thing, which they left there was a shower in there. They just leave that there,
which they said they left because they told me, then they didn't.
Oh yeah, they said there's something to pee in there. So he said, we need to measure how much you're paying. Well, can you leave me the thing in there? And we had to keep asking him, didn't we?
Yeah, I can remember that. That was so. It was. And then when you sat in the chair, you do have to have an accompagnante with you, someone who accompanies you most of the time. But then when you sit in the chair, that accompagnate's got nowhere to go. And the room's so well, they've got nowhere to sit down. You can't bring in your own chair. So I thought there was a bit of a night. The two times that I've had experience in the university hospital, which was just one night that I had in, and the time that Lara was in, the rooms were better. But they were just as strict with everything. But I think having a couple of people on hand, it's a lot for one person who's just with a patient. I think you'd need a couple of people minimum.
Yeah, I think so. And the guy in the next bed, I mean, he was very nice actually, him and his wife was there most of the time, but they had several family members coming and going all of the time. There was 4 people in the other half of the room for most of it.
Yeah.
And the curtain was only going between the beds, was only like 3/4 of the way across the room. So I could, from the bottom of my bed, I could see out of the door at the end of the room. And so, and their guests in the next bed, they were sitting and standing against the wall, so could see everything that was happening to me. And although when you were there, when something was happening to the guy next door, when a doctor came in, they cleared the room and got everybody to leave, including you. But when they were doing stuff with me and changing the stoma, with my undies pulled quite low down and all uncovered with poo everywhere, the next door woman, the wife, said, is it okay? Do you want us to leave? And the doctor was going, no, it's fine. You're all right. Not asking me at all about my privacy. So there's, I did get used to just going, to hell with it. I'll just do what needs to be done.
It is very much like that on the social security. When I know the night that I was in, and the next morning they came round, I knew I was getting out this next day, and the lady just came back, and I obviously had nothing on, like Lara was there, and the lady came with this big sponge, whipped back the cloth and went, right, it's time for a wash. I went, no, I'm leaving today, don't worry about it, I'll go home, and you don't need to do anything. She went, are you sure that's my job? I went, no, honestly, and I was left exposed a little bit. Lara's laughing at that point. We were able to joke because it wasn't, for me, it was a different thing, and pull the covers back to it. She said she should have seen your face when she just walked straight in without a chance. You're slightly off it a bit because you're on painkillers, so she just pulls it back and goes, there you go, for the world to see.
Yeah.
And it's just getting the job done for them, isn't it? But it was crazy. So, okay then. So we've been now, I think we'll have to do another one a bit further down the road because there's also, and we're running up of time now, but there was also, you finally left the hospital.
Finally we had to make sure we left because they weren't going to let us go.
They weren't going to let you go, and you finally got home, and then disaster reigned because it was a bank holiday, and you didn't have the right thing on your card, did you?
No, the prescription for the extra bags. Now, because of all of I've not really mentioned the leaking, but there were whole nights when the bags were leaking and they had to change the whole thing, including the backing, which is what was leaking. So after my experience of going through, I must have gone through 20, 25 bags over the course of the week.
Yeah.
They gave me a pack with 2 bases and bags in it. I think there were 3 bags, but only 2 bases. But basically that's 2 spare. And I was thinking, well, if this happens overnight and it leaks and I've got to change it twice, I'm going to be sitting there with myself exposed with nothing to be able to do about it until Monday or Tuesday, because Monday was a day off as well. So Liz went off around on the Thursday evening trying to get this sorted, going to the health centre to try and get the prescription put on the card, and then going to the chemist, and the chemist saying, no, it's not on there properly, we can't find these bags, they don't exist. And eventually she tried to go down to a different chemist, pharmacia down on the coast, back to Vélez Malaga Hospital again to see if she could get some from there, and them saying, no, you can't get anything from here. And then she met a friend from Computer who said, go to the health centre here and see if they can help. And they tried to rewrite the prescription, took it back to the pharmacia. Pharmacia said, no, can't do it, can't find these bags, it's not been written properly. She went back to the health centre, tried to get them to do that again. By this point, everybody was getting mad with her and she was getting so stressed. And eventually she phoned me up and said, I can't get it anywhere. None of them have got it. They don't exist. They just not got the right ones or anything. And they can't do it without this special code. Eventually she said, I'm just going to drive down to Malaga and go to the to Carlos Haya Hospital where I was on the ward, where I had been on the ward, and go and ask them because they've definitely got them because they're the ones that they put on me. And she got there and just burst into tears. And it's the building on that's building A on the right there and building B on the left. So I was up on one of those, right at the very top floor of that one.
Yes.
And so she went up there, burst into tears. Unfortunately, it was the best nurse, very, very small nurse with the blonde hair. I don't know if you remember her. I don't know if she was there when you were there. And she said, "Oh, well, you poor thing, come and let me give you all." And she got a whole bag full of bags and bases and extra things, and that made it easy. So Liz came home and that sorted the weekend out. And it turned out that the bag didn't leak at all, but maybe because I wasn't under stress anymore, and I was able to relax and just lie there and not move around very much. That everything was fine.
So that was 10 days ago. How do you feel now?
I definitely feel better than I was 10 days ago. I'm not taking as many painkillers. I just had a paracetamol this morning. Just the main pain really is not pain. It's kind of aching because of the raw skin where the bag is sticking to me. Because when I'm moving around, I mean, imagine having like complete glued to something that is being kind of slightly tugged around by your clothes. And I'm wearing an elastic belt that's attached to it, that's kind of just squeezing it onto me, just to make sure it doesn't move and jiggle about and loosen the glue that's on there. But I've also got my undies with elastic on them and my trousers, which are pulled up really high, which are elasticated, and they're all kind of rubbing on some of the wounds. But fortunately, only a few days ago, I got the staples taken out at the local health centre because they were making it worse. They were aggravating me, and I've also been told to put some oil on these where the staples used to be, so that the skin isn't dry, so it's not irritable. And so that's making it gradually better and I'm getting better at changing the bag and the base. I had it changed at the health centre on Friday when I went in to see the stoma nurse and get the staples, not the stoma nurse, but just the nurse, to get the staples taken out. And she didn't have any of the anti-glue spray, which the stoma nurse put on so that they can take off the backing instead of just going and ripping out your hairs and aggravating your skin. She didn't have any of that, so I've now got a really bad bit of what looks like she's taken the top layer of skin off on one part by where the bag glues onto. So and that's the stuff they use in the hospital. It dries out the skin and it leaves it a little bit sticky. Mm-hmm. But I've not been using that. Maybe I should be. That's the anti-glue spray. And the other picture I gave you, I think, was that's the one.
Wound healer. That we've got that every single. It's funny how brands make it into everyday life, because this is what you have for kids. So every time a kid grazes himself or anything, Crystal Mina, that solves every problem in your life.
It is, and I've stopped using that now because the wounds are healed up. I've got still got a small bottle of that. And that was the one they were showing me in the hospital. That's what you've got to get. The sprays and stuff are the things that you don't get on prescription, and that is a cream for sore skin, really. But it's like I can't
Is it for superheroes?
Yeah, if it's especially for Batman. Yeah, that's why I took the picture of it. Really, yeah, that's good for your skin, and that's really what I should have put on this really raw bit of skin. But I was dubious about that because if you're putting a cream on, then your skin's not dry enough to stick to. So I had a feeling that was going to leak. So I put on the small circle thing that you showed me. That's not particularly sticky. It's just a kind of like a plasticine, but a lot harder.
Yeah.
And so I put one of those on me.
Right.
And which kind of covered that thing. Yeah, that little circle, which I'm going to ask to see if I can get bigger ones. Because that took me 10 or 15 minutes. That's half of the time that it took me to change the bag, was doing that and preparing stuff. And I've got things that I put on the floor, and I've got to get naked. Unlike in the hospital, they put things all around you so that no poo drips on your clothes. But even then, if anything does get on your clothes in the hospital, they just change them straight away, give you a quick wash, put your new pajamas on, and that. But I don't want to do that every time I've got a problem at home. Just change all of my clothes because it's not as easy. So so I have to be naked in front of a mirror, and I'm doing it standing up. Whereas in the hospital, they do it with you lying down, and you can't quite see what's going on. They gave me a mirror as part of the pack, one of these little fold-up compact mirrors, and so I balanced that on the edge of the sink, and so I can see close up what I'm doing through the mirror, and doing the cleaning process and getting the glue off and all that kind of stuff. So you do get used to all of that.
They're not quite ready to gig yet, then.
No, because I still don't have any energy. I'll be, after doing this today, even just sitting and talking for a long time, and sitting in the office, I'll be tired for the rest of the day, I think now.
And
I can't lift things up. I can't lift my amplifier and things like that, and carry my guitars and pull my wheelie trolley along the street and unload in venues and put things in the car. I'm just not doing any of that. I'm not even washing the dishes at the moment because I can't. I've got to lift things about and do that, and so Liz won't let me do that yet. It'll be it could be a couple of months.
Easy. I think after that kind of surgery, you've got to be careful because you don't need to take any steps backwards either, do you?
No, and there's without being graphic either, there's stuff that's coming out my backside as well that you've got to be careful about, and it slightly worried me because it was looking red to start with, and I thought that's the last thing you need to happen is for the wound that's inside you to be bleeding, really. But I've been told that it's okay as long as it's only spots, and now it's gone more of a brown colour, so it's
healing.
It's just healing, yeah. It's just getting to. And I asked my son, who's also a nurse, he's just qualified as a nurse, and he said, yeah, you can expect that for quite a few weeks yet until it's all healed up down there. So yes. Just things you've become aware of that you didn't realise before,
It's part of the journey. Well, again, this is a good reason we're doing this video, because there might be people who need it, who can listen to this and know what they're going to go through, and hopefully it'll help. But 2025 for you then, birth appointments next week. Is it next week? No, this week, sorry. Thursday, 2 days.
2 days, yeah.
Stoma nurse.
And that's the stoma nurse, yeah.
Go back and see her and the assistant and see if we can just break her constantly talking without letting me say anything.
Yeah, and that's going to be all about whether I'm changing it properly and how it looks. She'll be looking at that, looking at that wound, that raw skin as well, and saying
stoma maintenance.
Stoma maintenance, yes.
And then the big one is around the 20th of January, where they're going to have the full review of how it went.
Yeah, that'll be the surgeon, I think, hopefully. And then they'll tell me whether there was any other cancer or whether there was anything about the lymph nodes, whether they took anything else off. They'll have analysed everything. They'll have sliced up any bits that they took out and analysed it and tested it, and they'll have taken some cuttings from the margins as well, and from, to see if there's any lingering cancer cells. And then they'll say, that's when they'll kind of give me the all clear, the first all clear, because they'll obviously have to test, 6 months into the future, and then another 6 months until like 5 years or something. I don't know how long they do it for before they give you the complete all clear.
Wow. Well, okay. Well, it sounds like it's one of it's a difficult one. I don't know how to end this kind of podcast, because it's sort of like, we've still got another difficult year, but 2025 moving forward, one of the main things as well is obviously you can't gig.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put some links below. So there's a lot of people who follow me, follow us, and follow you. And really, we need to keep the YouTooSpain channel going. And we need to keep you going, because all of this has also cost quite a bit of money.
Oh.
So,
the headphones have run out. Carry on. I can hear you over the speaker.
There's a little bit of feedback, but it's not something. All this, obviously, not only are you losing money, it's cost you quite a bit of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do it through the headphones, so you're not getting feedback.
No worries.
But
the advertising revenue on YouTube is pretty crap. So really, if anybody wants to help you, we've put a link below in this video. I haven't got the QR code here, but I can do that. And please just, we're asking help Skatz with anything you can there, just to get him through this, because we need him back gigging. We need YouTooSpain up and running. And
I've managed to keep YouTooSpain at a low level kind of going. I didn't want to stop doing all of the videos and the live streams.
No, you've done amazingly well. I mean, I know, you sometimes you can't be bothered because you're just feeling sick, and you've kept on the live streams or recorded live streams. I remember, planning with me, right? I mean, when you're phoning up and saying, look, I know I'm going to be too sick on Saturday because I've got chemo treatment. We need to record this day. That's the reality of what's been happening to keep the channel going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I've not been able to do what I was going to do in 2024, which was build the channel and, maybe get some revenue coming in, get more sponsorship, get involved and collaborate with different people who have different perspectives on moving to Spain and all of that, and also get around and about to be able to do more live walking around and driving around and seeing more of Spain and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, if I hadn't had the cancer, things would have been looking pretty good. I'd have got a lot more than 10,000 subscribers, and the videos would have been generating a bit more revenue. But so that's what's been just kept at a very low level all throughout this year. But so that's why 2025 has got to be the big push. As I get better and better, I'll have to push gently to start with, and also with Still Alive as well. I'm hoping that's going to start taking off as well. And it's only 81 subscribers at the moment, so do subscribe to that one as well, because I'm going to separate them a little bit more. Still Alive is going to be about living in general, but living in Spain specifically. Whereas YouTooSpain, I'm going to stick to the bureaucracy, really. That's generally, it's about how to move here, and a lot of that will be with you, thankfully.
Yeah, and ending on a positive note, that's going to be good. We've got lots of changes coming in 2025. I'm looking forward to getting out and about with you as well. I'm recording you, maybe doing some videos. So our channel's completely different. I want to get some out and about there, but maybe involve you as well. And I think with all things, we've got some exciting plans. I think you've got some exciting plans 2025, and it's a positive note. Anybody who can help to give Skatz a push, there's a link below. Use that link, even if it's a $5, just to keep the channel going, because these channels are important for people who are moving over.
Yeah, absolutely. And the information you get is is valuable, you know.
Yeah.
And YouTube channels like this, like both of ours, really, because there's only a certain number of people moving at any one time. There's only going to be a certain number of subscribers and a certain number of watches. So we're never going to be watched by a million
Yes.
and get all of
Yeah.
the revenue that you can from that. And you don't get that much revenue from that. It only tends to come from companies who see you with 100,000 people watching your videos. They then sponsor you with lots of money, and that keeps you going. But it has to come now with relatively small channels like ours from fans, from people who've been helped. And so, yes, I don't like to beg, but
you're not begging. You're not begging. You know, and thanks for coming on. I wanted to do this, and I wanted to talk to you about it. I know it's not easy, but you've got your story out there, the whole story, and albeit it has been there in your updates, but I think, you know, having it all in one place is important, and it's also important for people who you're going to help, who may go through a cancer journey, may pick up on this video in the future when they're been diagnosed or something, and hopefully they know what the process is. And so look, thank you I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah, I'll see you on Thursday, and thank you so much for all of your help as well. I can never thank you enough. It's been a journey for both of us, hasn't it? And,
it has. I've learned a lot, I have to say. I've learned a lot, and I've spent time in hospitals, and I've learned to be not as nervous in hospitals, which is cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's been you know, for me, that's the easy bit, isn't it? Because I'm just wandering around with you, you know, and you don't make it hard. You're not sat there crying every time you walk out of an appointment. We have quite a laugh when we have breakfast.
We do, yeah.
We've actually, you know, if you could say you've had fun over a cancer journey, we have, you know, because we've sat there, and it's been very light-hearted a lot of the time. But that's down to you, the way you approach it.
Because
and
it's been great. It's been part of your family over these times. The number of times I've stopped over at your house and been fortunate enough to be part of the enjoyment you have in the evenings with the barbecue going and making me feel at home, which has been lovely.
Yeah, you say just plug into everyday family life. There you go. There's a little photo of us there having a barbecue.
Oh, it's not come up yet. Just processing.
It's processing. There we go. The last one would be processing, wouldn't it?
Must be a bigger photo than the rest.
It's oh well, I've lost it now. You'll have to watch that next time.
Yeah, we'll see that the next time. We'll get some more photographs of the recovery next time.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I will see you on Thursday.
Yeah, all right. Yes, you're very welcome. Take care.
Take care. Speak soon. Okay, then. So that was Skatz. We're going to wrap up now, but as you can see, it's been a difficult journey, and it's been my first experience with someone going through a cancer journey. I'm sure lots of people out there have also been on that journey, and that's his journey in Spain. So don't forget to subscribe to YouTooSpain, Still Alive, at our channel, and watch out for the next podcast, which will be number 12, and our weekly updates, which are on every Sunday at 6:30.